Hey guys, so I'm just popping in today with another idea, just another simple little project that you can be doing. So today I am going to use stamp sets 36, 37 and 38. Obviously if you have these already you might be wondering what you can do with them, so I'm just going to show you a quick idea. Obviously if you don't have them you may want to contact your retailer, or you can do similar with stamps that you already have. So we're going to do today, what we're going to do is we're going to work on two 6x6 cards. So I've just cut out some smoothie card to 6x6 and we're going to work on two pieces. I'm going to do one in cool colours and I'm going to do one in warm colours. So we're going to work on either one first, it doesn't really matter. So I'll make a start and we'll take it from there. So the colours that I'm using for my warms are red lipstick, smoked paprika, tangerine twist and banana. So those are going to be my four warm colours, which I'm just putting on my paint mat now. And we're just going to finger paint today. So if you don't want to finger paint, of course you don't have to. You can go straight in with a paintbrush or a brayer. Doesn't really matter. You just want to get those colours mixed onto your card. So I'm going to start, let me move this one out of the way. I'm going to start with my warms and I'm just going to go in, bear with me a second. One thing I didn't think of is I need to put some paper underneath, because I don't want to get my desk covered. Let's put a piece of paper underneath. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to go in, I'm just going to add some colour, and I want it to be quite saturated and quite thick. If you're using paper artsy paints or using translucent paints and you're going straight on to a white background, you don't really need to worry too much about the opacities. You can, because the colours will still be bright because they're showing up on a white background. You only really have to start thinking about the opacities if you're going over dark colours. You know, this colour, this is red lipstick, is a translucent. It's really bright on white, on a light coloured background. If I try to put this on a darker coloured background or over a black background, it would be really dull and it would be really see-through. So you only really need to have to worry about it if you are working on a darker background. Okay, so you can see I'm just going in and just adding the colours. I'm not worrying too much about the blending and what they're going to look like. I'm even going over, because I'm using colours that are not going to make mud, so all of these colours go together, and because the paint's still wet, because I'm working quite quickly, you can get some sort of blend going on by working with the colours. So you can see some of the orange is actually blending into the red, which is quite nice. So I'm just going in, and I'll do this with all four colours. So I'm going in now with the tangerine, which gives it a little pop. And again, I don't need to worry that they're overlapping, because they will all blend together and just make different shades of orange and red. So they're going to work really well together. And then what we're going to do, we'll do a second card using our cooler colours. Okay, I'm just going to go in, my lightest colour is banana. It's not that much different to the tangerine, it's just a bit more yellow. The tangerine's got a bit more of an orange tone to it. So it's just going to make it pop a little bit more. And again, as I said before, I'm not worrying too much what it looks like. I know I say it all the time, and anybody who's been in a class with me knows. I always say not to worry. Don't worry about this first layer. This first layer is just colour. This is you putting colour into your background, and it's not going to make any difference to your finished piece. Okay, so I'm just going in again. I'm just going to add a little bit more red. So I'm just going in. And because a lot of what you'll find is a lot of the brighter, or most of the brighter, if not all, the brighter reds and yellows and oranges in particular will all be translucent. So you can layer up and get a really good look. Okay, so I'm just going in that orange, just adding a bit more here and there. Until I'm happy. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm quite happy with how that's looking. So I'm going to put that one to one side. Let's move that one out of the way, and that one can be drying. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this one in. Just turn this over because I don't want to get red paint on it. So I'm just going to bring this one in. And this one I'm going to do in my cool colours. So my cool colours are going to be Dirty Lime, which is a very bright lime green. It's almost a fluorescent. It's not, but it's almost a fluorescent. So I'm just going to use Dirty Lime. I'm going to use some Slimed, which I really like. It's one of my favourites. I'm going to use Cerulean, which is a turquoise blue, and then I'm going to use Deep Sea, which is darker turquoise blue. Okay, so what I'm going to do this time is, rather than just go random, I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm starting with the lightest colour, which is my Dirty Lime. Okay, so I'm just going round, and again you can do this with a brush. You don't have to do it with your fingers, but I'm just going round, and then I'm going to go in with the next colour, and I'm just going to kind of start working out from the centre. And again, because the colours, they're similar colours, they're not going to make brown, so we can go in. It doesn't matter that the paint's not dry. So we can just go in, add the next colour, and if I want to go back, see, I can go back to the Dirty Lime, blend it together a little bit more. But by the time we do our stamping and we do pen work over the top, it really doesn't matter whether it doesn't matter if it's neat and tidy. Okay, so now I'm just going in with the Cerulean, which is really beautiful colour. Going in around the outside. And just going all the way around. And you can see I'm not worrying too much what it looks like. A little bit more. And again, if I want to go in with the colour before it, which was the Slimed, I could go in again with the Slimed and just overlap to get a little bit more of a blended look. I'm not too worried about that, to be honest. I just want those colours to be there. And once we finish what we're going to do on top, you're not going to see it anyway. And then last colour, so I'm just going to go in. This is Deep Sea, so this is a really beautiful, rich, darker turquoise, but it really is a lovely colour. So I'm just going in. I'm using all paper artsy paints today, but obviously you can do this technique with any paints you like. Just make sure that you have black and white pens that will draw over the paint that you're using. So if you're using something that's a little bit more slick, you may need to go in with paint pens as opposed to gel pens. I'm going to be using gel pens today. You may find that you need to use paint pens if you're using paint that's a little bit more slick, because the paper artsy paints are a chalk matte finish. We can go in with our gel pens on top with no problem. So I'm just finishing off, a little bit more to go. So I'm just giving a little bit of a gradient going out from light to dark. But But to be honest, I could do the same thing on this as I did on the warm colours. I could just do random colour all over. It doesn't have to be, you know, there's no rule. Okay, so just a little bit more around here. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to give both of those a quick dry because we want to make sure that they're dry, ready to stamp on top of. So I'm just going to do that in a second. Okay, so they feel dry. I'll just flatten them out so that they're ready to stamp on. And obviously you want to make sure that your paint's completely dry because otherwise you're going to have an issue when it comes to stamping. One, you're going to ruin your stamps, and two, you could end up ripping your paper. So, okay, so I'm going to use a stamp from ETS 37, so I'm going to be using this one to start. Okay, so I'm just going to take that stamp, put it on a block, and I'm using black archival ink for this today. Okay, so just going to go in, make sure that the stamp's nice and inked up. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to stamp this at an angle roughly in the centre. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect, but roughly in the centre. Obviously, if you wanted to measure it out, you could. I'm not going to. I'm just going to stamp that design in the middle. Take it away. Perfect. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of the stamps from stamp set 38. So I'm going to add this small one from stamp set 38. And I'm just going to add that to the corner. So I'm going to add that into the corner of my square. And again, I'm just making sure nice and inked up because I like the black contrast between the two. So let's do it this way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stamp that into the corner. Okay, I'm going to turn it and I'm going to do the same in all four corners. So you can see I'm just roughly lining it up so that it's in the corner. Three, and last one. Four. Okay, so that's one stamped. Okay, don't need to do any more to that particular one. Let's put the stamps away. Now I'm going to think about what I'm going to stamp on the second card, and then we'll go back in afterwards and I'll show you some ideas for penworks. I'm going to put that to one side. I'm going to bring in my red card. Okay, so I'm going to use this stamp from stamp set 36. Okay, and again put that onto my block. And obviously the bonus with these stamps is that there are so many variations, so you can do any patterns that you want. There really is, it's just endless. There's so many that you can do. So let's see, what should we do with this one? Let's start, I'm going to start roughly in the middle again. So my idea with this project is I want to make these almost look like they're tiles, because that was kind of the idea that I had when this set was released, was that they were going to look like, my idea was it was Mexican tile type effect. Okay, so what else can I use? Okay, I'm going to use this one now from set 37. And obviously you don't have to, if you've only got one of the sets, use the stamps that are in that set. You know, don't feel that you have to rush out and buy every stamp that I'm using. Okay, so just, if you've got one of the stamp sets, use the one that you've already got. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just stamping now, I'm going in between. And the thing with these stamps is they're rubber stamps, okay? So you can't see through. So what you want to do to get them like this so that they're as close as possible, you always need to stamp a little bit closer than you think you need to. So you almost need to think that you're overlapping the stamp. I hope that makes sense. And then they join up, and it looks much nicer if they're joined, because then you don't have to do as much pen work to bring them together. Okay, so you can just see I'm just going round. And then last one there. And then, should I do something else? Do I want to do something else? Do you know what? I will. I'm going to use, so what I'm going to use now is this small one from set 36. And that one's really, it's really good for filling in. It's a tiny, tiny stamp, but it's really good for filling in spaces. So things like this where you've got space, you can kind of go in between. And I'm not worrying if it's perfect. You don't need to worry. The beauty of these stamps is when I did these stamps, these were actually hand carved. So I did actually hand carve these stamps originally. And when we had them made into rubber stamps, I specifically said not to take out any of the small imperfections. My carving is not fantastic. You know, I'm not a professional. So my carving's not perfect, and I always end up with little small pieces of rubber that I've not taken away enough that catches on the, you know, that the ink catches, etc. So I've got two. So now I've got two that are painted. We don't need to do any more than that. One of the things that I will do, and that I do on everything because it finishes it off, is I'm going to ink, before I start my pen work, I'm just going to ink around the edges, because that's going to finish it off anyway, because it's going to give it a frame. Okay, so, and you can put as thick or as thin edge as you want. So when you're inking, a lot of people will do this and go down on the table. I always lift mine up, and then what I do is I use my tool at an angle. So, and depending on how thick, so if I want a really thin black line, I will keep my my blender flat on the edge, and then I'll get a nice thin line. The thicker I want the line to be, the more angled I'll bring the blender over the top. So you can see I like mine to be quite thick. I like it to be prominent, and that we, you know, I know that it's there. So I always do mine at more of an angle. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going round, I'm just inking around the edges of both pieces. I'm trying to give you projects to do that are not too long, because you know, I am aware, I know a lot of us are stuck at home, but I am aware that a lot of you still have to go out to work as well, so you don't have as much time as, you know, those of us that are sitting indoors. So, and it's nice if you are out at work, it is quite a stressful time, and it's nice to actually have something that you can come home and do that's not too long. Okay, so you can see I'm just going in, finishing. So straight away you can see that makes a difference anyway. just inking around the edges. Okay, so I'll move this paper out of the way, I don't need that anymore. So all I'm going to do now is I can go in with pen work. Now obviously I can do, I say it all the time, you can do as much or as little pen work as you want. I always recommend that you have black and white. Black and white is always going to work, obviously, but sometimes I'll use a coloured paint pen as well, because sometimes that will give us, it gives us a contrast. So really is, you know, obviously it really is up to you. So one of the things, let's work on this one first. So one of the things that you can do, obviously, white pen work. White pen work is obviously always going to make everything pop. So I could just go in and start outlining some of my areas. And I can also put some detail in there as well, using my pen. So straight away that really starts to pop. You can see that's really going to start popping. Okay, and I can do the same. I can go in. So at least I've managed to find a white pen that works today. I must have had about 15 white pens and I could not find one that worked. Obviously I've managed to now, but out of all of them, this was the only one. So I'm just going to go in, I'm going to do the same obviously on all sides. I'm going to work quite quickly, so you don't want to see me just drawing. Go around. I just think when you start adding the black and white pen work or coloured pen work, it's the detail that makes a difference and that makes everything stand out. So just going to go in. So one of the other things, and I'll add some more white, but one of the other things that you can do is add black pen work. So one of the things I very often do is I really like this teardrop type shape. So what I'm doing is I'm just going in and I'm using that shape I've already got. So it's already there. You know, half of it's already there on my stamped shape. I'm going to go in and add that shape. Now I can so what I can do now is I can do a second one, which is slightly smaller, into the centre. And then I could even come out from here to do the last one. So now what I've done is I'm joining those outside stamps to the centre stamp. So, and if you're worried about joining these, or drawing them, if you can't draw them or you think you can't draw them, which I'm sure you can, the two new stencils that I've got, so this is, I think they're 187 and 189, have actually got those shapes already on them. So you can see I've already got those shapes. So you could actually just go in and put that down and draw around that shape. If you're really worried, you could line it up and actually use that to draw your shape onto your tile. But I'm sure you guys can draw that shape. Half of it's already there anyway, because you've got this curve. So I'm just going in, I'm just gonna add some detail to that. And I'm gonna do the same thing on all of the sides. And it just means that you're going to go from something which is stamped, which is a stamped image, and you're going to make it your own. Okay, so, and again, I'll go in then and just bring it up so that I know that it's joining those two areas together. So it's joining that stamped image on the outside to the stamped image that's on the inside. Okay, turn it again. Same thing again. Obviously you can use paint pens, you can use gel pens. I like this particular gel pen. This is a Uniball Eye, and it is a waterproof, fade proof pen. And it seems to, it's a rollerball, but it does seem that it draws over everything. I've not had an issue. I'd much prefer a rollerball to a fibre tip. I just find fibre tips tend to not like paint very much. And I've had brand new fibre tips that I've ruined within seconds. So I'm just going around again. My last one. As I said, you can do as much or as little pen work as you want to do, because I know some of you absolutely love it and you'll spend hours, and some of you don't like it at all. I tend to be in the middle. I've got to be in the mood. I don't like things to take too long. But sometimes I can sit and do a mandala or something like that and I can spend hours on it. Other times, a couple of minutes and I get bored. So just going in. So now I'm going to obviously go around and I'm just going to do the other direction. And it starts to look pretty cool. One. They don't need to be perfect. They don't need to be exactly the same size. It's just about adding some detail. If things don't line up properly or not perfectly, so you can see this one here's a little bit of a different shape, it's not going to matter. That's quite cool. So again, I'm just going to go in on the other side. And again, as I said, you can use your stencil if you want to and draw around that. If you're not happy to do it yourself, but I'm sure you can do it. But if you have the stencil, use it as a tool. You know, stencils don't have to be just for putting paint through or putting texture paste through. You know, I use mine as cutting templates, I use them as drawing templates. I use them very often if I'm drawing mandalas. I will pick out shapes that I've got on my stencils and I'll use them for the shape to draw around. So use them for other things as well. Don't just use them for putting paint through. We want to get the most of out of our supplies. So nearly there. I know it's probably a little bit boring watching me just draw, but I just want to show you how easy it is to transform something from a stamped image to something that really is your own, just by doing a few things. You don't need to do lots of things. You know, a little bit of pen work. This is looking very different already. Okay, so one more. But you can see already this looks completely different to how it did a couple of minutes ago, just by doing those couple of things. So a little bit of white, a little bit of black. The black as well, because it's solid black, because I'm drawing in solid black as opposed to just some dots or just some lines, it's really going to give you a contrast on the background. So that's the last one. And you can see I'm not worrying about the fact that it's not perfect placement. You know, that one's there and that one's there. It really doesn't matter. So straight away you can see that's looking very, very different. Okay, so I'm just going to go in now. for me, the white's the most important, and having that nice solid black as well really does, it will make everything look different. So you could go in with coloured pencils as well. Coloured pencils will always look good. So you could add some shading with your coloured pencils. I'm just going in. You could add, so it doesn't just have to be around there. I could just go in and add some there as well. Just to make, it doesn't have to be a space to be coloured in. You can go over, could just go over some of the lines that you've already got. So that's what I'm doing there. So that's really going to start making that stand out. Okay. Go up there. Let's go around those. And last one. What else can we do? The problem is actually stopping. So what I could do as well with the black is I could go, so I could go in here and add some dots coming out. Out to the corners. One more. What else could we do? I'm afraid I actually can't stop once I get going. Just going around there. So you can see it's really coming together just with a few bits of pen work. Doesn't even have to be too much. Okay, do I want anything else? Yes. Let's add some white in there. Try and let your pen dry before you start going in, not like me. You don't have to be too careful. You can be, because the stamps are not, because the stamp's not perfect, because they were hand carved originally, the stamps are not perfect. So because they're not perfect, you don't have to worry about being too perfect, and it will still look fine, which is ideal for me because I'm quite messy. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I think that's looking pretty good. The other thing that I am going to do is I shall, if I can find a paintbrush and some clean water, I'm going to add a little bit of splatter over the top of this. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do that without making too much mess, because splatter always makes everything nicer. And what it'll do as well, all I've done is I'm using the dirty lime, and all that's going to do, by doing that all over the top now, it's going to tie everything together, and it gives it a bit more of a weathered look, which I quite like, with the whole idea of it being a tile. Okay, so there we go, that's number one. Okay, so obviously you can do similar things. I'm not going to sit and go through the second one now. I'm not going to sit and draw on it, because I've given you a couple of ideas. You can obviously do the same thing with your second tile, third tile, fourth tile. Try different colours. Try, you know, we did. I did the video the other day where we blocked out some of the colour with a different colour. So, for instance, with this one, we could block out around some of this with the blue, like I did the other day. It's really going to make everything pop. You could also go in, as well as doing some of the things that we did on the blue card, we could go in on this one. I'm just going to show you quickly, and I've got a blue paint pen. So what I could do is I could go in and actually start pulling out contrast colour and fill in some of it in with a contrast colour, because that is going to give a complete look again to your finished piece. If I then go in and add white, start adding white to it, you get the idea. Okay, so I could start going in and adding white. And you'll find the darker colours, like darker colour paints, the white pops more, obviously. So, yeah, you can get some really cool looks. So you can see I'm just going in. I'm not going to do all of this, because you don't want to sit here and watch me do all of this again. But just give you a couple of ideas. And you can see straight away, I mean, I've only done that, and already that's looking completely different. Okay, so that's the first one. Hopefully you can see that. That one's near enough finished. I probably won't do a lot else to that. And then that's my second one that I've started, and I'll carry on with that. And then what I'll do is I will put a photo of both of them at the beginning of the video. And I'll also put photos in the Facebook group, Tracy Scott, My Creative Cafe. Okay? Thank you. I'll see you soon. I can't wait to see what you do.